Hey, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of Inside Pima County with Supervisor Rex Scott. I am Supervisor Rex Scott, and I'm pleased today to be joined by the outstanding director of our health department, Dr. Theresa Cullen. And it's so weird to call you Theresa.
I
always
know.
call you Terry.
Yeah.
For purposes of this interview, can I call you Terry?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right.
It's
Very good.
my mom who used to call.
Okay. Well, I don't want to sound like your mother when I
Right.
want you to be relaxed.
Right.
But Terry, thank you so much for being with us today. And because the health department is our second biggest department in terms of the number of employees, and because as a matter of Arizona state law, counties are the public health authorities for their region, we may ask you to do more than one podcast interview with us, because today what we wanted to be focused on is heat and heat-related illnesses, since we're about to make that transition into a hot time of year here in Pima County.
Well, first off, thanks for having us.
Of course.
We love to take every opportunity we can to make sure we're educating the public and informing them about what we are currently doing. Obviously, we are entering into peak season, but as you know, we do a lot of things besides heat, and we would love the opportunity in the future to share them with you.
Fantastic. Fantastic. That's very generous of you. We appreciate it. So since this is your first time appearing on our podcast, why don't you tell us a little bit about your professional background and what led you to be the director of the Pima County Health Department?
Well, this could take a while, but I'll do the shortened version. First off, I'm a family medicine physician, and I practiced actually up until the time that I took this position. I went to school on what they call a public health service fellowship to medical school. So when I finished training, I went and joined the Indian Health Service as a public health service officer. So I was an active duty public health service officer for 27 years. An amazing, amazing career. I feel really blessed and lucky that I had the opportunity to do what I did. During that time period, I was a family medicine physician. I did tons of OB and GYN, a lot of maternal child health. I then became a medical director, chaired all the medical directors for Indian Health Service, had a fairly significant stint in the DC area where I was in informatics. I'm a chief information officer. I retired, and let me just say, I did that really seeking to ensure that we could use data to improve people's lives, to make sure that we were turning data into action. Kind of what I think I do as a public health director. Then I retired. I worked for the Veterans Health Administration in DC in a national position for about 4 years. I then did a stint doing global health informatics, really with health, what we call health system strengthening, working with ministries of health in different countries, primarily low and middle income countries. During that stint, I spent a lot of time overseas, and my youngest daughter at one point said, "Mom, I found you a job." I said, "First, I thought she was Pima County Health Director." I said, "That job is never open." "No, I'm not." She said, "Mom, you really need to be here. You can make a difference here." And so I applied and I got the job, and that was next month. It will have been 6 years.
And does your daughter live here in Pima?
My daughter does live here. My husband's here. Two of my sons are here.
Nice.
One of my other daughters isn't. So for me, being the health director is somewhat personal. Right? My family's here. My extended family's here. We just recently had a brunch at my house with 28 of the extended family.
Wow.
So there's a lot of them that I want to help ensure have access to the most healthy lives they can have.
So I mentioned that this podcast is going to focus on heat mitigation, heat safety, heat-related illnesses. But can you just give us a broad overview of some of the different responsibilities of the health department?
So the health department actually has 9 different divisions, but I'll just talk about some of them that people may know. Consumer food safety. That's where we ensure that restaurants are safe, that the food that is being delivered is safe and you're not at risk to get disease. Part of that safety also inspects swimming pools to make sure that the chemicals are okay, that there's enough security and privacy, as well as safety incorporated into swimming pools. We provide clinical care through 4 different clinics scattered throughout the county. One of them is specifically for tuberculosis, but the 3 others are more comprehensive with a focus on reproductive health, sexually transmitted infections, screening for tuberculosis, screening for other diseases. So a lot of focus on prevention. We also work closely, as many people may know, with the opioid response, and we have funding that is coming specifically to help us address substance use disorder and community mental health. So those are just some of the examples of the work that we've been doing.
Fantastic. And again, we're going to have you back to talk in more detail about the work of some of those other 9 divisions. But again, given the weather that we're getting ready to encounter here in Pima County, what role does the health department play with regard to heat safety and mitigation and heat-related illnesses?
It's such a great question because, first off, I want to just acknowledge the work that everyone in the community is doing. The community-based organization, the Red Cross, the university, the city of Tucson, as well as other jurisdictions are really critical to our ability to respond well and keep people safe during this season. As a health department, however, a metaphor we use a lot is we set the table and invite people to be there. So one of our major roles in heat is really the convener. Throughout the heat season on a weekly basis and more if needed, we will ensure that over 80 organizations that are working to mitigate the impact of heat throughout the county have a place to come together. And we do that through a weekly meeting. And the reason why that is the role I'm starting with is that is the only way we can ensure that the community now stays safe. So working together with all these other organizations, we're able to create a heat safety network and a heat safety net to ensure that everyone throughout the county, regardless of where you live, has access to the services that are needed to protect them from heat. Remember, one of the goals of public health is prevention. So we work on prevention. We make sure that people are aware of what puts them at risk, how to individually assess whether they themselves need to be concerned or their family needs to be concerned, and also respond. And when people, I think of the health department in terms of heat, probably most people think of response. Do you have a cooling center? Do you have a respite center? Do you know where to go to get services? But it's also important to note that a ton of what we do is prevention, and we do that primarily through education.
Has the health department always had that function of being the convener of all of the organizations in the community that help our citizens deal with heat, or is that an initiative that you put in place when you became the director?
Well, I would say that former administrator, Mr. Huckleberry, had a lot to do with the decision to recognize that somebody needed to be the convener. And we worked closely with the Office of Emergency Management and the Pima County Health Department, because you can see how they both position that space of heat. We chose to take on that responsibility to ensure that we could convene. And I would say that really started in 2022. So now we're 4 years into it. We've learned a lot now the past 4 years. I think we enter into this with a sense of humility and recognition that many other people, like I stated, are doing amazing things. But somebody needs to convene. And because we've assumed that responsibility and really, in a sense, made it easy for people to participate, we've chosen to continue that role. I think it's been quite successful. I know that the organization fully is successful. Having an opportunity to know what other people know in the community are doing, so that if you're a nonprofit or community-based organization, you can see where there might be a need in a space that nobody else is there, helps us develop what we call a patchwork quilt. And so it's together pretty tight so that there's really a safety net that people hopefully can't fall through.
In terms of being responsive to all of the challenges that excessive heat can bring to the region and its people, what are some of the highest areas of priority?
So in terms of the risk, some of it is establishing a risk profile, right? And some of that is working with individuals for them to understand what puts them at risk. If you're elderly and you live at home and you're on a fixed income, you might not turn on that air conditioner and be put at risk. If you're on certain medications, that can put you more at risk. So there's an individual component. And then in addition, there are populations that we know are more at risk. Obviously, as we've talked about, those who are elderly and live alone. But there's also people that have higher social vulnerability. The unhoused is an area we're always concerned about. And then finally, from a community perspective, it's working with the community-based organizations and ensuring that they can provide the services that are needed.
Mm.
So a great example from the county perspective is our libraries. Our libraries for the past few years have really helped ensure that we have places that we can refer people to during the operating hours in the library if they're in need for success. The other community-based organizations also help ensure that scattered throughout the community, we have enough resources. We also are data-driven, so we evaluate data from where there have been deaths attributed to heat and what we call heat-related illnesses. Those are data that result from individuals being transported or presenting themselves in emergency rooms or urgent care centers. We get that data on a fairly timely manner every 24 to 48 hours. That can give us insight into where, and that data includes where people were coming from when they got in trouble. So that gives us some opportunity to be able to identify, are there areas right now that I'm more concerned. Finally, the other thing is I don't want to forget the rural areas. So we're really cognizant that rural areas may have less resources available in terms of a heat respite center. As you know, Supervisor Scott, we did put a cool container out at Oslo a few years ago. That will open again this summer. That was based on an evaluation of the data. What was the highest need area where we had no resources available?
Mm. And then because it is such a rural area and it's so difficult for people who live there to get services outside of the town itself, that was why we put a cool container out there.
Right. And we also were, in a sense, strategic enough to recognize that we needed somebody to staff the cool containers. So we have a community health worker out in the Ajo area that staff that cool container. So it's not like you open the door and you go in and nobody's there. You open the door and you go in and there's individuals that are staff from Pima County that not only help ensure that you have water or something to eat if you're there, but can also help you access it.
So you made reference to heat-related illnesses. What are some of the more concerning heat-related illnesses, and which segments of our population are we most concerned could be affected by those illnesses?
Yeah. So the people we're most concerned about are people that, so we get concerned about employees, people that work in sick leave. We get concerned about those who live alone, fixed incomes, because they may not turn on their air conditioner or their evaporative cooler. They may actually only be using a box.
Right.
You know that happens at times. The unhoused population. But we also get concerned about other people that have been in Tucson or the Southwest for most of their life and decide to go on a hike at May at 10 in the morning with inadequate hydration and hike up to Finger Rock. And I use this one as an example because I myself, about 10 years ago, got in trouble. I'm an experienced hiker, experienced backpacker. I was gabbing with a friend all the way up to the Finger, wasn't paying attention, and coming down, we ran out of water.
Oh, man.
So I think we just want to make sure that while there are certain individual populations that may be at risk, heat is a risk for everyone. And people should not have die from heat-related illnesses. They are all potentially preventable if we do them. How does heat illness present? Well, we probably all know, right? If we've ever had sunburn, you know what sunburn is because you've gotten too much sun exposure and it's probably hot. obviously you get sunburn when it's not quite as hot as it will be this summer. The sunburns are one thing. People that ever washed barefoot and had their feet burned because they were on that, or had an animal, their pet, for some reason, was on the hot asphalt. Remember in the summer when you open up your car and you get that flash of heat coming at you, it's an indication that it's hot out there. The things we worry about, obviously, are people that have heat stroke, which is the most serious complication. But heat stroke doesn't usually happen out of the blue. While it can happen rapidly, there's usually a progression of people getting heat cramps. That probably many people have had them cramps after you've gone outside, and then just heat illnesses, and then resulting in heat stroke. You can die quite rapidly from heat stroke, so it is considered a medical emergency.
So we talked about some people in our community who were most concerned about with regard to heat-related illnesses. In terms of our pets or livestock, what are some precautions that people can take?
Yeah, they're really the same precautions. Let's talk about domesticated pets first, that we tell that humans would take, right? If you're not going to go outside without shoes on, that's if you put some duties on your animals for that pet if they're going outside, and or limit their exposure during the day. So obviously, the beauty of living in Tucson, in Pima County, is it really is beautiful here, and the evenings and the mornings are still cool. In the desert, we get these 40-degree temperature differences. So even if it's 110 at the height of the day, probably in the morning, it's going to be 70.
Sure.
So you want to go hike, you want to be active, you want to take your animals for a walk. Those are the best times to do that. We can't also underestimate the value and the need for water for adequate hydration. Important to note, too, that when people sweat, they sweat salt. And so if that happens, it's really important to make sure you are giving yourself electrolytes. If you're in a situation where you're sweating profusely, because your body can't make the salt. It comes in because you're ingesting. In terms of animals and livestock, once again, water, shade. These are the two major things. Interesting enough, there are also two major things we want employers to make sure their employees have access to: water and shade.
So really, when we're thinking about what's best for us, that's also what's best for our pets and livestock as well.
Yeah. And I really would recommend that people think about that. If you're not going to go out without sunglasses and a hat and shoes, you better think twice about putting out your hat in those areas.
So beyond resources, sources of information within the county, where are some of the best places for people in the community to get information about how to be safe and keep?
Well, we've been doing a lot of education of our healthcare providers. So individuals that are older or on certain medications, and actually that list is on our website, we would recommend they talk to their provider about that. So that's one way to be evaluated. The other thing is the libraries have a lot of information, and also the website. Beat the Heat is the phrase that Pima County uses. PimaCounty.gov/heat will take you to a large number of resources that aren't available. In the summer, we tend to also go out to areas that we're really concerned about and do door hanging. We go door to door to ensure that people that are at risk in certain parts of the neighborhood, especially mobile home parks, which we haven't talked about, they tend to be more at risk. And so 9 times this summer, we will be going out with the Red Cross, with volunteers, with the City of Tucson, and with our people that work on streets for the health department, to go door to door to be able to answer questions and make sure people know where resources are available.
So to wrap things up, Terry, what are some topics or items of concern that we haven't talked about in terms of people being safe during the heat?
Well, I think the one thing we would really encourage people to do is check on their neighbor. What we know is that individuals who may get in trouble may not be able to reach out, right? So this whole concept of community caring, I think is critical to this. So check on your neighbor, make sure that you yourself, even if you have been here 40 years and you feel really comfortable at the 110, and my husband always says that, I'm a desert rat. Well, you can be a desert rat and you can still get in trouble. So make sure that you're paying attention to what's going on out there. The other thing is the National Weather Service does do heat alerts and heat hornets. And when those happen, the Pima County website for the entire county will have a banner up there saying we're in a heat advisory. At times when there is a heat advisory, we really encourage people to just take that extra caution. It's sad to say, but I anticipate we will have a few of them this summer. When they happen, it can be a heat dome. It can last for what is an interminable number of days. They do all end, but there could be a 8-day, 10-day period where you really want to move your movement inside other than at dusk to dawn because it's the only safe way.
So it sounds like the best general advice is look out for each other and use common sense.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Terry, Dr. Cullen, thank you very much for being with us, and we'll have you back to talk about some of the other important work that the health department does. But we really appreciate your time and your commitment to the people of Pima County.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity.
You bet. Our pleasure. And thank all of you for tuning in today.